I'm going to wait to say your name because I want to make sure I say it correctly.
Hey,
Hi,
we
how
did
are
it. I'm doing well.
you?
How are you?
Good. I love your
Thank you. Feeling very
hat.
summery. That's like my thing right now.
I know. I love hats. I have so many like that. I love, 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 love hats. All
Awesome.
right. I wanted to make sure I say your name. Say your first and last name.
Chinasa Elue.
Chinasa Elue. So Dr. Chinasa Elue. Got it. Welcome to Tea and
Thank you for
Conversation.
having me. And yes, I have my tea. Okay.
Yes. So tell me what you are drinking before we get started.
Absolutely. I am drinking a green tea. It's late in the day and I still have to teach this afternoon. So I need a little boost right now.
Yes. And
So
that's
that's what
so
I'm
funny
sipping on.
because oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So, typically I will have my green tea and I usually put lime in there, but today I have elderberry and what do I have? And with elderflower. Someone gave me this a whole pack when I was sick. They gave me my stepmother did. Um, and it's really good. And if you know the healing agents of elderberry, so
Yes,
I'm
sir.
right on trying to keep that
Come on.
immune system up, trying to keep
Absolutely.
myself together. But how are you?
I'm doing well. I can't complain. I'm blessed.
Good, good. Thank you for taking the time out because I know you are a boss woman, a busy woman, and I appreciate it. I don't take it lightly. Your girl was like, you gotta interview her because she's doing amazing things, and I love Sister Power.
Yes, yes, yes.
Shout out to Chi.
Yes,
All
Tucci.
right, yeah. So this is my guest. I'm gonna try to say it again.
Chinasa Elue.
Chinasa. And you see, I was, like the little kids, like, let me say it.
I
Chinasa Elue.
Elue.
LOA. She's an associate professor of educational leadership and higher education at Kennesaw State University. She is also a professional speaker, executive leadership, and life coach, and CEO and founder of True Titans Consulting Group. Dr. LOA brings her professional background in the educational leadership and her decade long ministry leadership experience to her commitment to her work with clients to help them navigate difficult career transitions and obtain a better work balance. Dr. Elue, did I
Elue.
say it right?
Elue. You're almost there.
Elue is a certified life coach like myself with Certified Coaches Federation. She resides in Atlanta with her husband and two beautiful children.
Yeah.
Girl, you're doing a lot.
Hey, I gotta keep on keeping on.
Yes. So let's start from that obvious question. They often say women can't do it all. How are you doing it all?
The grace of God. I mean, it's real. Life is real, especially having walked through the pandemic. I think, there was a lot of learning and unlearning that went down last year. But I think mostly I do it all by honestly listening to my body and listening to how I feel in the moment. So I'm very intentional about how I kind of pack out my schedule. So instead of being booked and busy, I am very strategic and critical about different things I choose to engage in that line my calendar. So you won't find my
Mm,
days fully laced with meetings. I build in a lot of breaks. I try to plan projects and my time accordingly just to make sure that I don't run myself into the ground. So I try to treat myself like an asset in a lot of ways and
mm,
protect that and
mm.
protect my space and my energy in a lot of ways.
Do you know what a gem that is to not only just to women, but to men alike, to really guard your space and to
Mm-hmm.
be intentional about how you live your life and what you do. That's so very important in what you decide to put on your schedule.
Yes.
Although you are booked and busy, you're not going to sacrifice yourself and your family, and you know when to say enough is enough. Why do you think so many women you know, they want to have it all, but they don't understand that work-life balance, and they run themselves into the ground. Why do you think a lot of women don't know how to navigate and set boundaries?
I think a lot of that deals with how we've been socialized in our upbringing. We live in a hyper productive, hyper competitive society where we are constantly reinforced with these ideas that we have to work around the clock, that if we're not hustling or working 24/7, that we're essentially lazy. And so we feel like at times that we have to earn our worth or earn our keep in these various spaces that we occupy. But I think the most important thing that we can take away is just understanding that we're worthy just because we exist. And we don't have to continue to produce or work around the clock to show people our value. And I think it comes to recognizing the very value that you possess as an individual, that your work is so much more, you're worth so much more than the work and output that you provide on a daily basis. And so you owe it to yourself to kind of break away from those traditional ways of thinking that we've been socialized in our upbringing and choose instead a different way of looking at how you want to experience life. We don't, we can't, I don't want to say necessarily that we can own it all or we can do all things or have all things right. But I also believe in the sense that you can have what you desire. I believe that, and I'm a God girl, hands down. So I really do believe that I can do all things through Christ. But at the same time, I also know that I have wisdom and understanding of what my seasons look like. And so it makes no sense for me to pack on more than I can handle, because in essence, what will happen is that I burn out. And so being understanding of who I am and how I function makes me think that it's important to just put some demarcation between these different seasons, not run to the ground. And I think for women individually, they have to come to the realization again that their work does not produce their worth, that they are valuable simply just because they exist, period. Period,
like they said.
Period.
But with a T at the
end.
But that's so true. I need you to say that again about their worth, because people do think their work is their worth. And everybody, I have a lot of titles, you have a lot of titles, but that doesn't make us who we are on the inside. And I think so many people, when those titles drop or those things drop that you can't do anymore or unable to do or fit in, you begin to lose your self-worth because you are starting to think you are those titles. And when those titles are not there, then your worth is lessened by some chance. I want you to talk more about that, because whether they're watching live or they're going to watch the playback, because this will be on my YouTube channel as well, tell women why they are worthy, even if they're sitting still doing nothing.
I think in essence, we have to realize that we are not created just to work. There's so many other things that we possess, so many other gifts and talents that are inside of us that at times, I think about when we go to work on a night, maybe you're working a 9-to-5 job, or you're an entrepreneur, or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, whatever the case may be. But I think oftentimes we spend 90% of our time on 10% of who we are, when there's so many other gifts and gems inside of us that are ready to be cultivated. And I think when we become mindful that there's a bigger purpose for why we are here, then we begin to detach ourselves from having to produce so much and just simply begin to ask ourselves critical questions about what in essence am I created to do while I'm on this earth? What is it that drives me? What is it that fuels me? What mark do I want to leave during my time here? And I think when we begin to think strategically about those and actually do that critical self-reflection, it gives us the opportunity to understand that there's so much more than what my hands can build. That there are things in my mind, there's things in my heart that I want to see come to fruition. And so I have to be intentional about how I create the space to even begin to engage in that kind of exploration. And, you know, being in a society where we are conditioned to work around the clock, we don't oftentimes leave that time for exploration of our interests or things that we enjoy, or just to simply rest, because rest in and of itself is its own separate ministry that we need to engage in more.
Come on, the sleep ministry, rest, the rest your bones ministry. Come on.
Yes. And so
that's so true. No, that's so good, because we are in a society right now, if you don't work yourself to the bone, you know, you hear people saying, what sleep? I'll sleep when I die. Well, you're going to die a little earlier if you don't get rest,
Come on
because
now.
your body needs rest. Your body needs sleep. You have to be refreshed.
Yes.
And so many people were just in that society were like, yes, we're going to, you know, we're going to keep on grinding it out. We're going to do this. We're going to hustle and grind. But I love something that you said on your Instagram page. You said escaping the grind. Talk about that a little more, because everybody's like, you know, hustle and grind, you know, rise and grind. And I'm all for grinding. But I had to learn the older I got that, you know what, you need to rest. So talk about escaping the grind. I love that.
Whew,
as I sip my tea.
Go ahead and sip that tea, because I'll get my sip in a minute, right? So escaping the grind honestly departs from this notion that we have to be on call 24/7, that we have to be grinding and putting forth effort around the clock. When you choose to intentionally escape the grind, it means that you are prefacing your physical, your mental health by giving yourself space between your job and your life. Because if we're not careful, that both can be so intertwined that we don't even know which one is which. And so I think when I did that initial post, I was actually heading on my way to vacation, because I had been working around the clock with the academic semester, and then even with my business, and I knew I needed a break. And so in essence, if we're not mindful to build in periods where we have extended rest, we may find ourselves on the brink of burnout. We may be wondering why it's taking us weeks to create something that would have normally taken us days. And it's because we're not giving ourselves the space we need to recharge and reset and release all of that tension, all of that anxiety, all of that baggage that we've been carrying with us for some time. So escaping means just putting a full stop on the normal hustle and flow and choosing to go a different way and preface your health and your well-being in that context.
And that's so important, because so many people don't preface their health. They will keep running until they're burned out, until they can't stop, until God says, you know what, you can't do no more, so I'm going to put a fast halt to it. And people don't prioritize their health. They don't prioritize their self-care and their rest. And then, you know, you turn out to be this monster, because you're not prioritizing anything else. And when people say, oh, well, you know, look how they're acting, or look how, it's because a lot of people are not really falling in line with their mental health, their self-care, their rest. They're running, like you said, burning, you know, the fire at both ends, and really wondering why they can't sleep at night, or they're up at night because of the anxiety, because of the stress or the concern or worry. What do you do with your anxiety, if you have any, or stress? How do you manage that?
Oh, that's such a great question, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Because I think about last year. I keep going back to last year because that's not the only time I've experienced stress, but I will say that last year the stress was at all-time high. You know, not only were we navigating the global pandemic, we were navigating the social political context that we were navigating. We were having a racial reckoning with
racial reckoning,
shootings, and everything else that was going on with the uprisings. I mean, across the board, especially as a Black woman of color here in this country, there was just a lot to contend with. And so the anxiety and the stress and the mental health piece was huge. So some things that I prefaced during this season was to be very mindful of how I was building a space to go outside and actually commune with nature. And so I would take walks with my kids. In the evening when the sun went down, we would go outside. We actually started a family garden last year so that we could engage with, you know, just using our hands to kind of do something new. And so that was a lot of fun for us. I also take breaks from just simply not getting on social media as much. So I am fairly active, but one thing I started doing was, one, setting a timer for how long I chose to engage on the platform.
That's good.
Two, logging out of apps at the end of the day, so it wouldn't be an impulse to just touch it first thing in the morning. I was very mindful of not going to particular sites or unfollowing certain people who were like mental triggers for me at that point, especially if they were kind of always sharing negative information. I had to be very mindful of filtering out news sources and information, and choosing instead how I was going to get information. Because if you're not careful, it can be like a fire hose that's turned on 24/7. But if you are intentional, you can cultivate how you want to receive news. So for me, the best format is written, written prose. So I get a certain newspaper, I get their email updates to my email account. And at a certain time of the day when I'm checking email, that's when I get it. I'm not locked into, you know, certain news stations. That's not me. I cannot do that 24/7 for my own safety.
No.
So I think it's just finding out outlets to protect your mind, and then working your physical health at the same time.
Yeah, whoo, you said a whole mouthful. Everybody is with you. Hey, Jamie. Hey, Danielle. They're saying absolutely rest your bones, big sis.
Okay.
I said, same. Jamie is definitely concurs with you. It's so important to be able to be intentional about what you allow to seep through you. And like you said, with social media, and I have stopped doing like a lot of scrolling. Like I don't scroll. Like I'll post for business and try to keep my trends in the algorithm. But as far as just scrolling down, I'll do it, but I know how far to do it and how long to do it. It's not an all night thing. You know, you hear some people saying it's all night. I can't go to sleep because I'm scrolling. I'm looking but then it's like with your scrolling, yes, everybody's timeline looks different depending on who you follow, like you were saying, and some of the things that you follow. But everything down your timeline is not positive. And you don't know what's seeping in your brain before you go to sleep. And that's on your brain. It's like I remember the other day I was looking at something and Swiss Beats was in my dream. But he was only in my dream because I literally saw him on this show that I was watching, this new show. And he was a guest on the show. And I went to sleep, and not because I like him like that. You know, Swiss is cool, but you don't know what's seeping into your subconscious.
That's true.
You just don't. So it's so important to unplug. And I love the idea of setting the timer. Yes. And really being intentional. Talk about intentionality when you talk about just even how you're fitting everything in. For those that just tuned in, let you know, she is a professor. And let me say, Dr. Don't tell me. Chinasa.
Yep.
Hey, I use my syllables. I signed it off phonetically.
You are so good. Okay.
That was that Montessori education back when I was 3. But she is a professor. She's a CEO and founder of True Titans Consulting Group. She is a professional speaker, executive leadership, and life coach. And she is her background in educational leadership is a decade long. She has a ministry of leaders, right? A ministry for leaders, correct?
Yeah, I was on the executive board.
Executive board. All right. So, and I'm just trying to look real quick, you know, my glasses all the way down. So, you know, I can't read, but I'm just trying to hold it back a little bit so it's not here. But talk about your ministries. Because even though you were in, you know, you held a position there with the leadership ministry, but talk about you being a professor as a ministry, you being a speaker as a ministry, you being a life coach as a ministry. Because I oftentimes talk about that, but people don't realize like that is your form of ministry, giving back to God what he's given to you. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, you know, oftentimes we feel like we have to be formal pastors to engage in ministry, when in fact, each and every day how we live our lives demonstrates the love of God. And I think in everything that I've been engaged with, whether it's professionally or in my business or even in actual ministry, the intent has always been to be a light and to shine forth the light of Christ inside of me. And so I think it's really important, you know, as I think about future opportunities and things like that, to ask myself this key question, you know, how am I representing Christ through my actions and how I treat others? And so I hold that very near and dear to me when I'm engaging with people on a consistent basis. So I know that when I talk to people, I want them to you know, feel like they've been loved, like they've had a, you know, they felt some kind of warmth or a different type of presence when we've engaged in conversation or extended contact. And so that has always been my impetus when I'm talking and engaging with people.
And how do you do that on your worst day?
On my worst day, you know,
and I say that because
yeah.
people think if you're in ministry or if you have the love of God around you or you believe that you don't have a not so good day.
Well, you know, I am coming out of a season where it has been especially rough, to be frank with you. You know, I lost my mom about 2 years ago. It was
Oh
actually 2
my,
years
I'm
ago
sorry
through
to
May.
hear that.
And so I feel like in some ways I've been in a cloud of some sort, having to kind of navigate grief and understanding what that looks like to walk and on this side of heaven without my mom. And so she was such a strong pillar in my upbringing and in my life that to have someone with you for 30 plus years of life and then for them to just be gone like that in the blink of an eye, it really, when you say rough days, I mean, I've had to walk in spite of the immense pain that I faced from that. And I think the biggest thing that kept me was just understanding that God is good. At the end of it all, I don't have to fully understand, nor you know, I don't have to understand all things. I think I had to make peace with knowing that she's in a better place. And for me, that was paramount, to know that the Lord doesn't want me to suffer through grief. That was never his original intent. I know that we all at some point will walk through some form of grief or loss. And it's almost like the Lord wanted to teach me how to heal from this. And he has been healing me day one. And I've seen his hand on my life. And so that gives me joy, knowing that I am loved so much that even through my worst pain, I still have a God who cares so much about me to teach me and to hold me and to comfort me throughout this process. And so I've never felt fully alone. And I've actually been able to encourage others who have also walked through seasons of loss. And you already know, with what we walked through last year with thousands of people dying, that if there ever were
I have more than a half a million.
Come on. And it was crazy that I walked through it prior to the pandemic. So I already had some tools in my arsenal to help me navigate. And then to be able to share that with others was very helpful. And so I walk in gratitude a lot of the time, because I'm just grateful that I was still able to make moves in spite of the pain.
Wow. What has God shown you about yourself that you're like, okay, God, you made me like this?
I'm stronger than I think. Look, I'm much stronger than I think I am. I think at times, you don't know what you're made of until you have to go through the valley. And when I say the valley of the valleys, you don't know all of the strength training you've been doing, physically, spiritually, all the things, until you're down in the gutter and you realize that you have to pick yourself up and you have to make steps in spite of whatever emotional or physical trauma you're going through in that moment. So I realized that I'm a lot stronger than I even thought I would be. And I dare I say more resilient than I thought I was. You know, I realized that there is a level of grace that was birthed inside of me during this season, and a deeper level of strength and understanding for what this looks like. And I feel like I'm a more empathetic person in a lot of ways, because I have walked through this season, for sure.
So with other people with grief and loss, you're able to shed some light and some love on them and let them know that, you know, God is bringing you through it with grace. And it's difficult, you know, you lost your mom. So that's not an easy thing, especially if you were close to your mom. And then right after that, then we're in a pandemic and you're trying to figure that out. You know, that's very emotional. You know, do you feel like you have, through the pandemic, do you feel like that you have a little PTSD or some remnants? Because a lot of people have really been going through it since then. And it's almost like some people, it's honestly not subsiding. But do you feel that, you know, you struggle through that, or do you feel like you kind of went through it with grace? Because I know it was on the heels of your mom. What was 2020 like for you?
It was still just as hard as it was for any other person, to be honest with you. because it wasn't just the pandemic. It was everything else that all kind of joined into one big ball, and we were all trying to figure that out. And I think specifically, it's different for people of color, because what we walked through last year, I think about the week of the election and how we didn't have no results, and I could not sleep that whole week. Right?
No, right. And we've never gone through that before.
Yeah.
Usually at the end, we know what's going on. We waited, what, 3 days? Was it 2 days? 3 days?
It was a week.
Something
it was like
that.
almost 5
Was
days.
it? Yeah, I remember. Because it all ran together. It just seemed like a long time.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the death of Ahmaud Arbery. I remember where I was when I heard the news. I remember the non-verdict for Breonna Taylor. I remember when I heard about George Floyd. I remember all of the racialized trauma that I felt in my body and in my mind when we walked through those, right? And some of that still lives on, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that I will say that walking through last year taught me, again, was the need to preface joy. I said, I will not let the enemy, because there were so many things that wanted us just to give up hope, to not even pick up the pieces and keep it moving, to feel like this is just going to be our story. And I said, no, this has to stop. There's so many things that we can celebrate in and of ourselves. And yes, there's still a lot of work to do. Hands down, there's a lot of work to do. But let me tell you, I'm going to enjoy myself and love on people while I'm doing the work. I'm not just going to be beaten down to the bone and feel hopeless in the midst of what we see happening. And so I've had to preface joy in that moment and build space for it.
Preface joy. Period. And build space for it. Period. I love that. Preface joy. It's so important, because it is. You know, I'm in a valley right now, to be honest with you, dealing with so many different things at one time. And, you know, sometimes you don't even feel like prefacing joy. You know, you don't even feel like doing it, but you have to do it. You have to keep on keeping on. You know, I have to do this show and different things that lift me in that, because helping others, inspiring others, you know, bringing people on like you, that for me is what's in my heart and what God put me here to do. You know what I'm saying? So I can't just sit and say, well, I'm not going to do it because I'm in this valley. You know, I'm a cancer survivor, and I was still doing shows when I got the diagnosis, and nobody even knew what I was going through. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just a firm believer that you have to, but then you also have to extend yourself grace and allow yourself, as we talked earlier about, to rest. You know, on Mondays, I got a lot going on, but it is my self-care Monday where I'll get dressed. I mean, take off my pajamas and take a shower and put on more pajamas and do nothing or do something, right? Do nothing or do something. Or, you know, yesterday I was, you know, working on a computer. I was writing. I was, you know, doing things that will be good for me. You get what I'm saying? And everybody is not going to understand that, because, like, what do you mean you take out time for you? You know, but it's crucial, because if not, you'll have a nervous breakdown.
Agree. I definitely agree. 100%.
Yes. What do you do for yourself that's just for you?
Oh, I do a lot of things for myself.
That's good.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah. I realized, and maybe it came full circle during the pandemic, that if I don't nobody's going to take care of me like me. Okay. If I don't put myself on the top of my own list, nobody's going to bump me up there.
Come on.
My hubby loves me. You know, he still has his own things going on, but I am my own best advocate. I have to do what's best for me. And so some things that I'll do is, you know, I book monthly appointments with my esthetician. I go and get my skin care situation all the way right, because it got messed up with wearing all these masks during the pandemic. So I was like, no.
They're calling that mask knee. I'd never even heard of that. Have you heard of it? They're calling it mask knee.
I can believe it, though, because that's what prompted me to even start seeing someone. It was really bad.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So you know, going to see the esthetician. I work out a good portion of the week, so I try to work out at least 3 to 4 days a week, and that's my time. Period. When I'm on my little bike upstairs, people know, do not come and slip for me. Okay, don't knock on the door, don't peep in, don't call my name. That is my time. Okay. So I am very mindful that that's one of the ways, one, I refresh and rejuvenate myself, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
working out and I'm paying myself first before I engage in this day. So before
Mm-hmm.
I answer an
Mm-hmm.
email or a call or a text,
Mm-hmm.
I hop on that
Mm-hmm.
bike and I work
That's so
out,
good.
and then I come downstairs and I pray, and I fill myself spiritually, and then I engage with the day. By that time my kids are up, we get them squared away and off to school. But that's kind of how I do it on a more consistent and daily basis, is that I pay
Yeah.
myself first so that I can show up and pour out to others.
Yes, because you can't pour from an empty cup. We hear it over and over again. You can't. If your cup is empty, but a lot of women try to do it. And then that's where we go back to what we talked about earlier, is that burnout. You can't burn that candle at two ends. You just can't, because eventually it's just going to dissipate. So
Yeah.
you really, so I love that you really take stock in making sure you're good. They
Yeah.
always say, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Okay. They're gonna resent people. You like,
You
don't you see I'm
do.
tapped out?
You
And no,
do.
they won't see it if you don't articulate what that looks like. So you have
You
to
do.
say it, but then also demonstrate. No, this is how you're gonna treat me. So
Yeah.
you set up those boundaries, even with those in your home, so that they understand
Yeah.
that, hey, let her have her time, and
Absolutely.
we'll come
Because
in.
because you have to have people that are around you
Yeah.
that will help you heal and help you grow and help you, have that moment to yourself. Because if you don't have those type of people around you, like you said, you will be resentful. You will be angry. Like, you got to have people that are, they're on your team, and they want to see you win and want to see
Yeah.
you be happy and want to see you full of joy. It's so important to really acknowledge that and to have that. So I love the fact that you said that they don't even, if they hear that bike going, they don't even go upstairs. How old are your children?
They're 2 or 4.
Oh, so they know, they're trained like that?
Well, they don't need, I locked the door, first of all. Let me go ahead and put a blockade up. They'll try and beat on the door, but I'll text my husband and say, hey, come get your kids.
That is so funny, because I remember when my kids were little. They're older now, they're in their 20s, but I remember when they were little, you can't even, go to the bathroom, because your
We
kids will
know.
crawl. They can't even walk. You said, they can't even walk. They be crawling in the bathroom.
They're in there with you. Like, what's up? What we
They
doing?
in
I'm
there.
like, come on.
Right, right. We taking showers. There's plenty of times that I've bathed my daughters in the shower with me, because I'm like, okay, you in here? Let's just take a shower. Let's just do that. And
Okay.
it's hard when your children are little to really find that time, because you want to make sure that you're a great mom. So that's
Yeah.
so good that you have your husband who supports that.
Yeah.
And people don't underestimate that. Like, having a spouse that supports your mental and your well-being is so crucial to a happy marriage, a happy motherhood, a happy life. And I see the joy on your face. So he must
All
be
right.
doing all right. Shout out to your husband. He seems like he's doing
He's on his thing.
doing all right. How long have you been married?
We'll be married 7 years in August, so we're getting ready to hit
Wonderful.
our anniversary. Yep.
It doesn't sound like you got to the itch that they talk about.
No, we've been good. I think it's been a good run. We've been very understanding. Communication has been really key on us, and so I think because
Yeah.
we talk a lot, and we know kind of each other's expectations and the whole nine, that has made it actually a very enjoyable experience. I'm not enduring. I'm
Mm.
actually enjoying.
I
My
love that.
Yeah.
You're that, but you know what? People don't understand. Just that simple.
Yeah.
Enduring and enjoying. That, whoo. You just had a little shiver in me when you said that, because it's so true. Because so many people are just enduring.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a sentence. They're waiting the time out. I'm going to wait this time out to
Okay.
see what's going on. So tell me, as a life coach, I definitely have to know, how did you get into life coaching?
Whew. That is a story in and of itself, but I'll give you the truncated version. Um,
Okay.
in a previous place that I was working in, I was the only Black woman of color. I was young
Been
when I
there.
first started out in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And being there, I was faced with a lot of microaggressions, a lot of discrimination, racism, ageism, you name it, I'll walk through it. And I think it came to a head for me when I started having some severe health issues as a result of all of the stress and anxiety that I was under while in that particular role. And so I made it a point to begin to advocate for myself, to begin to dismantle the things that I saw happening to me and being very intentional about what I wanted in my career. And so as a result of that, I was able to make a leap of faith and transition somewhere else that's 100% better than where I was beforehand. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized on the back end that, you know, people are going to treat you with what they think they can get away with. And I refuse to just
Mm-hmm.
be a doormat for people to walk over, or a
Mm-hmm.
road for people to ride their little cars on top of. Like, that was just not going to be my portion. And
Mm-hmm.
so on the back end of that,
Mm.
I chose instead
That
to
was not
start
going to
a
be your
business.
portion. I
Come on.
love that.
Yeah, it's not. I'm like, no, I'm not here for this.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up starting a life coaching and consulting business to support professional women of color who are navigating difficult workplace environments. And so my impetus for
Mm.
that was just to give women of color, specifically my Black women, a space where
Yes.
they could get coaching and support and how to navigate that foolishness. And then if they wanted to figure out the strategies to transition elsewhere. And so I started the business back in 2015. I took a small hiatus when I had my son in 2017. And so last year, between 2017 and 2019, I had 2 kids. So I was on hiatus for that time, and my mom was sick, so I was caretaking as well. But I chose to come back out right before the pandemic hit. And then we all know what 2020 looked like, so that happened. And so I had
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. And so I've been doing more speaking and consulting on the back end versus coaching. But I'm stepping back up to start coaching again this fall. And so I'm excited
Yeah.
to start working with more women who are looking for transformation in their careers. I don't believe
Yeah.
that we have to settle for anything. I think the sky's the
Yeah.
limit. I think a lot of
That's
us
right.
are overworked and undervalued and underpaid, and we deserve so much
Mm-hmm.
more than what we are accepting. And maybe we feel like we have
Mm-hmm.
to accept the circumstance because that's all that's being offered. But I truly believe that there is so much more that's out here that we may not be mindful of. And so my goal is to help women of color actualize their fullest potential, and to not pander to the narratives that they've seen at play in their career, or maybe the negative falsehoods that they've bought into based on words that people have spoken over them.
I love that. I love that. You know, transformation is huge for me. I'm a transformational life coach.
Yes.
Transformation in all areas is so important because sometimes change is temporary. But when we can transform, it's a mind, body, spirit type thing. We're transforming all of that. And it's so important to make sure it's that. And my phrase that I coined is never too late to remix your life.
Come
And
on.
it's so important because you got to do it. You know, like I came up with that because it really is a matter of life and death sometimes to remix your life and try to figure
Yes.
things out all the time. You
Mm.
know, you want moments where it's just like woo-saw, you don't have to think, you know, and just do, but it's a
Yes.
lot of times where you have to, you know, remix it in some type of way in order to, you know, move and grow and heal and all of those things.
Yeah.
You are a professor. How long have you been a professor, and how do you like it? You know, do you like being a professor? Because you do a lot of different things.
I do
Do
a
you
lot.
like it?
I like it. I've been a professor since 2014. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I like walking with people in their professional and personal journeys. And so it's so
Mm-hmm.
funny because
Yeah.
I feel like at times, especially now in this phase of my career, that I'm coaching, in essence, my students, especially as I'm teaching doc students who are
Yeah.
looking to complete their dissertation. A lot
Yeah.
of it comes down to belief in oneself that they can actually complete the project at hand. And so I
Mm.
enjoy actually being able to cross over some of my coaching skills and encouraging them.
Yep.
Um, and letting and motivating them to actually move from start to finish in their project. And so when I see my students graduate, it gives me so much joy because I was there. I witnessed
Yeah.
their journey, and I was there on the back end to help celebrate that momentous milestone. And so
Yeah.
that has been phenomenal. I also love the research aspects of what I get to do. I get to study what I want to learn, right? And
That's
so
so
that
good.
that has been an amazing piece about being a professor, is that I have the opportunity to study topics that
Hmm.
others may not have found of interest. A lot of times when I'm
Yeah.
looking for research on Black women or women of color, a lot of times it's scarce. And so I have the opportunity to contribute to a growing body of literature to make to make sure that we have better outcomes, that we're able to track what's going on in the moment, and then use the research to help us come up with better research resources and tools and systems and services that can help us thrive as we move forward in the future.
Since you're a smart woman, I want to talk to you, and you're talking about Black women, and I want to talk to you about, I just want to switch gears. We talked about health just a little bit, about your mom, and talking about anxiety and those type of things. But as far as mental health and physical health, what's your take on the disparities of Black women? Because you talked about Black women. I totally see in anybody watching that you have a passion for us and an affinity for us, as you are a Black woman yourself. What do you think about the disparities with health, not even health care, just about voicing, hey, something is wrong with us, and it going ignored, as we know history says?
Yeah, and I think we've seen that, especially when it comes to maternal health. I know that we've seen that play out over and over.
Look at Serena Williams too, how she almost died and had to fight for herself. Beyonce as well.
Same. And we hear these stories and these narratives over and over again. They're not even just you know, a one-time story. I have family who a family member almost lost because a similar situation happened in the hospital. And so, you know, I think when I think about disparities of health, or the ways in which our health is not taken as seriously, it really gives me pause, right? And it calls for the need to make sure that even when we are, as an educator, it speaks to the importance of making sure that those that we are training up behind us are aware of culturally responsive ways to reach populations that don't look like them, right? So being intentional about how we choose to engage in conversation, and not downplaying the different aspects of what it looks like to, or what we conceive as a healthy person. There's research that talks about how it's in years past, you know, that Black women, even with the OBGYN field, for example, a lot of the modern day practices that we have in place right now are because Black women were used as experiments to
Henrietta Lacks.
Yes.
Let's talk about Henrietta Lacks.
Absolutely. So there's a book out there.
And I'm in Maryland. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you read the history, you'll understand that it was deemed that we had a higher tolerance for pain based on some of these biased research practices that were really rooted in some really egregious practices beyond our time here. And so I think it's important to understand where these biases come into play and how they impact how we're able to support Black women. And that there has to be some intentionality behind taking our word for what it is. To not question or feel like you need to investigate less because we bring up an issue. If we say that something is not right, then you owe it to us to begin to advocate and see, okay, where does the issue lie? And I think at times that doesn't necessarily happen because we're not taken as seriously. And that's very unfortunate for us to be in the 21st century and we're still having to contend with this at this point.
Yeah, it's really disheartening when you do hear the stories. And if you everyone's listening, if you don't know the story of Henrietta Lacks and many other Black women who, as we're talking about this, definitely do your research. I know later on, I didn't really care for the movie, but Oprah did the movie on Henrietta Lacks. It went too fast. You got to read the book. The book is amazing. It goes into detail, but so many women do this because they think that we have Black women, we have a high threshold for pain. So they'll keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And that stereotype strong Black women, you know, it doesn't fortify weakness. And people don't understand there's nothing wrong with being weak momentarily. We have to really eradicate that. You know, wait a minute, you're a strong Black woman. Like, you can't feel, think, cry. You can't let your guard down, take your cape off because you're a strong Black woman. Yes, even strong Black women have moments of weakness or moments of where they just want to kind of lay still. Can you just quickly, what's your take on that, the strong Black woman? Do you feel that kind of did us a disservice in a sense?
Absolutely. I definitely think it did us a disservice because it doesn't give us the grace to now be soft or gentle or cared for in a lot of ways.
Cared for, soft and gentle.
A mule or a workhorse because we're always that strong person that we can come to. So when we
Yep.
do voice that we need a break or that we need some form of rest from whatever the issue of the day may be, people automatically assume like, well, what's wrong with you? Are you being lazy? Are you not able to handle the pressure? And they begin
Yes.
to,
And they
talk
want you
down
to
on us.
man, even a woman, they'll tell the woman to man up. So
Yeah.
where's the place of softness? Where's the place of vulnerability? Where's the place of just being, putting your shoulders down for a moment? So
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Absolutely. And I think we have to push back against that narrative, right? We don't have
Yeah.
to pander to these stereotypes or these narratives that surround Black women. I think
Yeah.
we have agency to change the
Mhm.
narrative, to present a different counter story to what we've seen play out. And I think when we engage in different spaces, whether we're the majority or the minority in those spaces, it's up to us to decide how we want to show up. And we don't always have to
Absolutely.
be the strong or the most resilient person in that space. If we want to be soft or if we want to be gentle in our demeanor, or that's just your general countenance, that's up to
Yes.
you.
We have
Um,
agency over our bodies and
we,
what we
we we
decide
have
to do in our
agency.
minds.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I refuse to feel like I have to live up to any stereotype. That's
Mhm.
not that's not. I wasn't created for people's for their perceptions. I'm just gonna be.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm
This
just
is
gonna
what I like you,
exist.
Dr. Chinasa. I like you already. Thank you. You
Okay.
knew who I needed to talk to. I love it. I love it. Because you're like, I'm not taking that no more. I'm not going to live up to who you think
Yeah,
I should be or what you think I should be. If I want to feel, I feel. If I want to be vulnerable, if I want to cry, if I want to be strong, allow me that agency to do
absolutely.
that and not someone else dictate how you should be in certain situations. That's key.
Come
That's
on.
dead on. All right,
Yeah.
as no, go ahead. I want you to
No, I was just
continue.
gonna say, I mean, we are more than enough. Period.
Mm-hmm.
We
Period.
are there always seems to be some marker that we're trying to live up to or some standard that we're being held to that we have to meet. I'm like, who made the standard? Who created that line that you feel like you have to cross or jump over?
That
Like that
part.
is not the standard. Whatever standard you set for yourself, that is it. We don't have to feel like we have to live up to all these unreasonable expectations. We're held on such a high pedestal that at times I feel like we have to live up to people's perceptions so that we don't get the short end of the stick. Even when it comes to our
Yeah.
careers, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times when we walk into these spaces and we're one or one of few,
Yeah.
we feel like we can't mess up.
Yeah.
Granted,
We
others
have a
mess up.
higher standard.
Yeah, other people
Yeah.
mess up all day,
All
and
day.
nothing happens. But we're afraid of
Yeah.
what will
Yeah.
play out in the long run, right? And to
And
be
we
honest,
pass that down to our children. We teach
we
our children that same thing.
come
Like,
on
you have to be better. You have to be, and
twice
it's
as
so
hard.
unfair. Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
so unfair because it doesn't give us the grace that we need to be a human being. Where other nationalities and cultures have the right to just be, oh, a woman, I don't feel like it, or I can just shrug. We don't have that.
yeah.
Like, we have to keep pushing. Okay, you had this baby. Okay, 2 days later, keep pushing. You
Come
had this.
on.
Okay, keep pushing. Keep doing. It's like we don't have time to rest. And then if we're resting, we're looked at as lazy or you're not doing anything when you done worked hard your whole life. And it's like other races, they can, oh, she's resting. She has a headache. Do you know how much I did with a headache? I was working for a nonprofit for 12 years. I never called out one day, ever. So do you know how, and then you get to the point where it's like, you know what, I'm going to put me first. And then people are looking at you as a Black woman like, what do you mean? But like other races can, oh, well, they're just resting and it's so unfair.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. So all you
But
have to do
we
is
have to take it back.
yes, you have to take it back, and you have to just own the fact that you are deserving of rest. Period. And you advocate for yourself in the best ways that are
That's right.
possible. And not everyone is going to fully understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, you know that you know what you feel internally and
Yeah.
physically and how you need to take care of yourself. And so
Yeah.
prefacing yourself in spite of opinions and what people may say is key because people are always going to have something to say at the end of the
That's
day.
right.
And
That's
that's just
right.
that. And to be honest
Yeah.
with you, I honestly don't bother or worry myself about what other people are saying. I just have to
That's
simply
right.
live my life. Because if I did
Yes.
that, I would engage in this constant barrage of people pleasing, and I'm doing myself a disservice by not showing up as my full and authentic self. So whatever I need, I take. And what I don't need, I leave to the ground. And I just keep walking each and every day, showing up as my best self, knowing that I'm walking in my truth and my own integrity in that capacity.
I love you, girl. Yes, you are speaking my language.
Come
It's
on.
so true. It's so true, Chinasa.
Yes.
But I wanted to end with a question that you asked on your Instagram. You said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" So I'm going to ask you that in return. What do you want to be when you grow up? And tell me why you posed that question. What'd you say?
I'm cracking up that you're asking me this question because it was laced with some other things, right? So I'm Nigerian American, and I grew up in a household where, as a Nigerian, you are only.
It's in my ancestry,
yes,
girl. I did my ancestry DNA. Okay. It's like 30-something%. I said, okay.
You already know. So as a Nigerian, the standard of excellence is beyond the roof, right? So you are seen as successful in a Nigerian home if you are one of maybe 4 or 5 particular professions. If you're a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, somewhere up there, pharmacist, one of those key kind of STEM-based or more lucrative fields as it's seen in Nigerian parents' eyes, that's what is seen as successful. But, you know, I ask that question all the time because a lot of times we're not given the choice to really explore all of our gifts when we're growing up. And I realized that that was kind of the key for me as a child. I was kind of groomed to just, you know, step into the medical field. Now, when I got to college, what actualized was something different. I don't do germs, I don't do blood or needles. And so I already had to crush my parents' dreams when I let them know that that just would not be our story. That they
but
were
you're still a doctor.
Yes, that they were going to have to look to one of my other siblings to fulfill that goal of theirs because, you know, they have goals for their kids. It just wasn't one of mine. And I told them, I said, hey, I'll be a doctor of another kind. And so I kind of stumbled into my field. I didn't know necessarily that I could be a professor. I didn't know what a professor looked like in that capacity.
Wow.
But what was great was that I was working at my university as an undergraduate student in housing, and I had a great manager who, you know, suggested student affairs. And so I started looking at graduate programs in educational leadership with a higher ed emphasis, landed into my master's program, excelled, and then went to graduate school in South Carolina. I actually see one of my major professors on here. Hey, Sat, Dr. Sat, he's on here today, right? But I went to graduate school, and I had some amazing professors, Dr. Satterfield included, who encouraged me to consider the professoriate. And I didn't know that was an option. I didn't know what it looked like, but they encouraged me so much that I landed a gig. And then I landed one again. And so I kind of stumbled into what I wanted to be when I grew up. And, you know, I think about now as a parent, the importance of really just giving my children the space to decide for themselves what they want to be. So I don't necessarily ask them the question, what do they want to be when they grow up? That's kind of customary when people are kids, but you don't fully know. Even as an adult at times, we may be in our early to mid 30s and you may be wondering still, what the heck am I doing or what do I want to be, right? And I think there's never a chance that's too late for us to start over. You can start over.
That's why I say it's never too late to remix your life.
It's never too late. Come on. And if you're in a place where you are stuck or you are just not enjoying your career, life is too short to just sit there and suffer. We owe it to ourselves to get to the meat of what it is that we want to do and pursue that wholeheartedly. So don't be afraid of the journey. I feel like there's gold at the end of it if you're willing to explore. I feel like you will walk in more fulfillment when you allow yourself the grace and the permission to say that, one, you want more, and two, that you are willing to go after what that is.
Yes.
And so I encourage people to just be bold and exploratory so that they can uncover truly, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I know that's something that I've continued to do as I've branched out in different areas professionally. And it served me well because I'm a much more happier person as a
That's so
result
important.
of that. Yeah.
And that's why I love Michelle Obama's, if you read the book Becoming, or if you saw the making of that on Netflix. Yes, when she says that, you know, I hate that question because we're all still becoming. And when you ask that, I like how you explained it, because when people would ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like just a definitive thing. I want to be a teacher. And then they start with that at 6 years old, and they still continue with it even if they turn 15 and
Come
they
on.
want to. I can give my oldest daughter an example. My youngest daughter did graduate. She will be a teacher in the fall. But
Congrats.
thank you. My oldest daughter, she kept saying she wanted to be a nurse. She said that since she was young. Then when she went through high school, she was like, I want to be a nurse. Then when she graduated from high school, she really didn't want to be a nurse anymore. She wanted to go into business, but because she had conditioned her mind to say, I want to be a nurse, that's what she continued to do. So she continued to go into nursing until God saw something different for her. And I say that because she went to school for nursing, she kept going, and then the school, a prominent school, lost their accreditation.
Wow.
I'm not going to say the name of the school, for a semester, which caused her to be like, okay, now I can't pursue and continue. And I'm getting in. It was right before she was getting into the nursing program, because you
Wow.
got to do your prerequisites first. And then she was going into but then she was able to switch it. She did occupational therapy, but she really didn't want to be in the medical field. That was a dream that she had when she was younger. So, but she really wanted to be in business and have her own business and do marketing and business. Yeah. So God really pushed it. By that school losing their accreditation, she went to a school that's prominent for business, and that's what she's in school for now. What she wanted to do now as an adult. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So sometimes people have this, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they stick to it. And that's not really what fills their heart and soul. That's not really what they want to do. And then even within business, then you think of something else. So even if it shifts again, because she's really into speech and she loves speech. So she has even been toying with a speech pathologist. And I give the permission to find what you need. I'm not that type of parent that says, you need to be this, you started this way. As long as you're still learning, and as long as you're still in school, and as long as you're still working it out and figuring it out, that's fine. Because there are too many unhappy adults because they're pushed into careers that their parents pushed them into. So I love that you pushed back and said, hey, I'm going to be a doctor, but I'm not going to be dealing with no blood. I'm not dealing with the patients. I'm a different type of doctor. And how courageous of you to really walk in your gift and your purpose. And it almost seems like it just was tailor-made for you.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, I didn't feel courageous in that moment. And I think a lot of times when we step out from a path that we thought was, something that we were going to do, there's a lot of fear that's associated with that.
Of course.
But I think we have to lean into that. And to know that at the end, all things are going to work together for our good. So we don't pander and fall to the wayside and choose not to pursue our dreams because of the fear. Instead, we lean into it as an impetus and as a catalyst, honestly, to help us get to the next level. And for me, that was something that was so key, was that I refused to let fear rob me of the experiences of finding what it means to be fulfilled in my career. Ooh. And I think a lot of times, if we're not careful, we can walk through these jobs, maybe financially, financially well, but then emotionally and spiritually bankrupt because of what we've subjected ourselves to for a job or for a career path. And so we have to know that there's so much more to us than just the career or just the job. There's so much more that we've been called to fulfill, and we have to be intentional about walking in alignment with who we are internally and physically, and asking ourselves, what mark do we want to leave while we have time here on this side of heaven? So that has been my biggest piece as I've just been moving throughout my career.
And we're going to end there. I can't even sum that up better. Yes, to walk in on this side of heaven, walking intentionally into our purpose, basically, into our gifts, and allowing God to just guide. And I'm just going to sum it up what we were talking about earlier for those that turned in, extending yourself grace to be, extending yourself the permission to have self-care, allowing yourself to feel, and no matter what no one says, you're worthy. Yes. So if you missed this show, you missed an amazing show with Dr. Chinasa. She was dropping some gems, and I see people tuning in right now. You got to go back and watch this. This was such a powerful show for everybody, but especially Black women. This was good.
Thank you. Thank you for
This
having
was
me.
good.
I
It's
appreciate it.
my pleasure. So this will be available also, of course, here on Instagram, but it'll also be on my YouTube channel, Kendell Lenice. So everyone watching, please go over to YouTube and subscribe to my page. And also, if you don't follow Dr. Chinasa right now, please follow her. She is dropping gems. She is a boss, and she knows when to let her shoulders down and be the woman that God called her to be. Thank you so much. Yes, she said this was good. Yes, thank you so much. This
Oh,
was a
thank you.
great
Hey,
show.
Lucy. Yeah.
You were an amazing guest, and I thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Yes. Okay.
You're so welcome. This is Tea and Conversation. So welcome. This is Tea and Conversation. I often say that my grandmothers, both grandmothers, paternal and maternal, started me off with tea, passed it down to my mom. I've passed it down to my daughters, just like tea is healing and soothing. So it's great conversation. Thank you for watching. God bless y'all.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.